Hello, everybody, and welcome to RPGeeks, where three today, professional science communicators roll dice and tell stories, and sometimes, like today, talk about the science that comes up in the game. Hi, I'm Emily Bates. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a science filmmaker-y person, and so are my friends. Here's Shamini.
We're only friends with people who do the same things as us. Hello.
All my friends.
We're cool.
It's like a medieval guild.
We are the guild of people who make sciencey video things. My name is Shamini Bundell. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a science video journalist. I always say journalist now because I'm like,
cute.
Sounds cool. Sounds cool.
You work for a journal, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, oddly enough, most people who work for a journal
Not a journalist.
journalists.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so a bit confusing.
But you do report on the stuff in the journal, so you are being a journalist on
news.
stuff.
I do news. I do a lot
Also,
of
most
news.
people that work for YouTube aren't YouTubers. Now I think about it.
What? Yes, they are. Surely they are.
No, the people that work for YouTube.
For YouTube.
Oh, I see.
But yet,
What would I
Googler is a.
say?
You'd say that someone was a Googler if they worked at Google, but you wouldn't necessarily say someone who works at YouTube is a YouTuber.
Would I
What?
say they were a Googler?
Yeah, I'd say that someone.
In
I've heard
context,
that
maybe.
definitely.
You know who is a YouTuber? Simon.
Dr. Simon Clark.
And a
from
thumping
YouTube.
good
I've
on
heard of him.
once I'm trained up a bit.
Thumping
Yes,
what?
hello, I'm Simon. I use he, him pronouns, and I make videos on YouTube. Watch my channel out for probably 2 days' time for, I can promise you, a big flop that's going to be really good, but no one's going to watch. It's about how fluid mechanics is basically universal and how you can model galaxies as fluids.
Ooh.
It's a very cool
That's
idea.
cool.
I just don't think people look
I didn't like fluid mechanics as universal as a pitch. I was like, might not watch that one. But you can model galaxies as fluids. I was like, okay.
The super simple pitch of this video is just like you can model molecules in a water droplet, you can model stars in a galaxy. You can use the same equations to get similar results.
Yeah.
There's really cool things you can do with it.
I'm excited. That sounds cool. I'm excited to watch it.
Unfortunately, I can't make a title that just says that.
No. Water drops equal stars?
With that face in the thumbnail.
Something about a galaxy in a drop of water. Something very poetic.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a Tennyson poem or something like that. Something
You can't be
wanky.
poetic in a YouTube title.
Galaxy is in Orion's belt. If Orion's belt.
So, you know, I read something the other day. No, I didn't read it. I heard it. Somebody referred to Mr. Beast as the McDonald's of YouTube. And it's really stuck with
That's
me
accurate.
ever since.
Yeah.
And like what I'm trying to basically do is be like a Michelin-starred restaurant. I will
Okay,
provide you with
okay.
one dish every month, but it'll be very high quality, and you will
You'll
pay
be,
for
and
it.
really short and
You don't
tiny.
actually charge more for it though. That's where this whole system.
Yeah, but I earn less money than
still costs
McDonald's.
the same. You just earn less. You're like a
Yes,
Michelin-star
overall.
restaurant
Yeah.
with the price of McDonald's, and you just hope that.
Wait,
Like-
why are you saying Simon's videos are cheap?
I meant cheap to sell.
No, I know. I sort of wanted to make you feel
I'm
bad.
just trying to make the market economics work.
Right, well, we've done a fairly long intro there. Why are we here today? We're here today because
science?
it's time for the science of Starfinder. Starfinder. That was my jingle I made up on the spot. And so we're going to be talking about two topics that came up recently in our campaign. And I believe, Simon, you will be kicking us off with time dilation.
Yeah, so
Can I do the bit where I recap the plot to?
Yeah,
yes,
we're going to try and
good
keep it as
idea.
spoiler-free-ish as
spoiler-free
possible.
recapping of the plot.
But I think I will say
I'm going to talk
for this
generally.
episode,
Yeah,
there's going to be
it
some.
might be a little.
There's
bit
going to be some
spoilery.
spoilers. So
Yeah,
you have time. Go watch the
something
episodes now. Pause it. Go watch them. We'll still be here.
Because we are talking about two topics today that have really strongly come up in our campaign, and that are also really just very cool sci-fi staples. And I said on Twitter earlier, if you're ever running a sci-fi campaign, put these two topics in it because it's very cool. Very nicely done, Emily Bates, Fate Weaver. The first topic is I don't know whether you've gone more specific or broad, but time dilation and how it relates to black holes. Is that right, Simon?
yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about. Time dilation in general, and we'll talk about the different
Time
kinds.
dilation in general. And the reason that we're talking about it is, and I thought this was very clever. Time travel is often a sort of common sci-fi trope, and you can have all sorts of fun by being like, oh no, we're suddenly in the past or the future. Whereas what happened to our characters, well, we were suddenly in the future, but we didn't need time travel.
You don't need
we just
time
went and
travel.
hung out a little bit too close to a black hole.
Didn't fall in because magic.
Well, yeah, okay, we didn't fall in because of
Sufficiently
magic,
advanced
so-
technology.
We didn't have time travel, we did have magic. And suddenly found ourselves essentially in the future. Ooh, which, according to Simon Clark, is entirely plausible and would definitely happen. And 100%.
He's going to give us all the reasons why. Go.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Jeez. Welcome to your first lecture in this relativity course.
No. I'm so
boy.
sorry. I'm just going to be out for the next half hour. And then...
Honestly, I don't know why relativity gets a bad rap from people, because it is the most beautiful subject you study in a physics degree. Like, it's got...
Is it what Einstein invented?
Invented.
Einstein invented one form of relativity. People sort of...
I love it.
The
Did you
general
say
one.
invented?
Yeah?
He didn't invent
It
relativity.
didn't exist before.
He invented a new theory about space, and it was
He
about
invented the
time
theory
to...
of relativity.
But relativity
Hey,
is
that's
just a-
very good, Simon. I'm sorry, I was
I
slightly
missed it.
talking over that.
Oh, I missed out.
Say it again. Do it again. It was very
Einstein
good.
invented a new theory about space, and it was about time too.
Hey, okay, that's
I'm quite happy
Very
with
good.
that.
That's
It's very
quite
nice.
good.
Did you come up with that yourself?
I think I did, but it's quite possible I've read that somewhere and I've just forgotten where I read it. Yeah, okay, so yeah, but it's one form of relativity. So I mean, just to finish off that thought that I just said about it being beautiful, like it is of the stuff that you do at undergraduate, because I think Oxford is quite unusual in that you do general relativity, at least an introductory, module that's a whole term long on general relativity, whereas that's normally like a graduate school thing. So your mileage may vary, basically. But special relativity and general, the two flavors, are just some of the most beautiful, elegant. It's really great stuff.
Which one's easiest? Start with the easy one.
So this, weirdly, special relativity is the easy one, even though you'd think it would be
what?
general. But physics.
Did Einstein invent that one?
Yeah, so he invented both forms. When we talk about relativity, we mean something, it's going to sound very, very simple, something happening relative to something else. So, for example, if you're at a train station and a train is moving past you, you could say that I am stationary, that train is moving at 20 meters per second relative to me. That's all that when we talk about relative motion and relativity, that's really all we're talking about. Now,
I love how it's always trains as well. Like
that's
needs
I think it's
train
because of
to
when
work.
Einstein was doing the work. He was always traveling on trains, I guess.
Hey, thank you, trains.
Whereas, I guess nowadays it would be like, I don't know, a hyperloop would be the
No, it wouldn't. No,
comparison.
it's not a thing.
Oh wait,
No.
a practical form of transport, like I don't know, a train is probably a bit of a better comparison.
I love trains.
No, we already
Not like in a take pictures of trains thing, but like I just like being on a train so much more than any other form of transport.
Yeah.
Like any other form of transport.
It's the
Trains,
best.
apart from maybe a boat. I like boats.
We've ranted about Elon Musk already before the stream even started.
Yeah, we
properly.
did. Yeah.
Gotta stop giving him the
But yeah, just trains.
trains.
Just stop reinventing
The
the
better
train.
trains.
Anyway,
Quicker train.
so if you
Better
were saying that, like, you're sat on a platform and a hyperloop is going past you at 20 meters per second,
Stop
like,
saying hyperloop.
Train.
Train.
a train is moving past you at 20 meters per second, the Galilean relativity transform would be just take your speed and you subtract the speed of the other thing, right? Like it's a simple addition, which is the way we think of our brains working.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And basically, what Einstein said is that it's not quite that simple, but that holds at low speeds. But as soon as you start getting towards significant percentages of the speed of light, stuff starts getting weird. And in this context, we're talking about stuff getting weird with time. So there's a really elegant thought experiment that kind of shows that time goes weird when you start moving. So one of the fundamental ideas in physics is that the speed of light is constant. It doesn't matter how fast you're moving, you always see the speed of light being the same. Light will go away from you at constant speed. So what you can do is create the world's, like the simplest clock you can possibly imagine is take two mirrors, or one mirror and a sensor, and you release a photon, and you put it up, bounce it off your top mirror, and collect that photon. You measure how long it took for that photon to take. And you could use that to say, if you get so many of these bounces in I don't know, 500 bounces equals 1 second. That would be a very very small second, obviously. But that's like the simplest way you could possibly conceive of a clock. Now, imagine that you move that clock and you have it going at a constant speed. Instead of the photon going straight up and straight down, it goes along a hypotenuse.
Oh no.
And the speed of light is exactly the same, so it's traveling a further distance, which means that the second on a clock that's moving is longer than a clock that is stationary.
Oh,
Hey, I know I'm not a physics person. I've never heard that analogy, and that it
I
makes
don't think I've ever
so
heard that
much
analogy,
sense.
and I'm sure I've learned.
I've learned something. Right, I know stuff about. I mean, I literally put time dilation and in my campaign because I think it's interesting. But I've never heard that
This was just
example.
familiar.
It's I think it's Feynman came up with it. He normally
Well done,
did this kind of stuff.
Feynman.
Then,
Isn't he a bad person?
He was a
He one of the bad ones?
complicated
wow, big
person.
questions. Big questions.
Can't remember. Anyway, it's fine. That's a very good analogy. Carry on.
So but that's that, and what you can do is actually work out exactly how long it would be, and you can imagine there's like a squared because you've got to work out the length of the hypotenuse, and there's going to be some one minus
Wouldn't it
something.
be a sine
squared.
wave? Because but it's constant speed, so it has to be angular.
Yeah,
It's not
so
gonna
it's
slow
so
down
it's
at the
it's a
end.
triangular
Yeah.
thing, and you can recover what we call the Sorry, go on, Bates.
So they're both moving.
Yeah.
At the same time, and because the photon still sort of gets ejected straight upwards, that's why it's an angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Just checking.
So you can recover what we call the Lorentz factor or the time dilation factor, and that, if you want the specific form, it's one. Everybody with me? Imagine a whiteboard in front of you.
Oh no.
You've got 1 over, so it's a fraction, square root of 1 minus your velocity over the speed of light, so your fraction of the speed of light squared. So
What are you talking about?
Wait.
I'm just going to form the.
No, I
I
don't
didn't get the
know.
context for it.
So
Yeah.
No, I
the
just
people at
have
home, if you had a
numbers.
piece of paper, you could have written it down.
I've got
We're
paper.
all at home.
But not necessarily. People could be out and about watching this. And what that factor is basically 1 if you're traveling at anything less than 1% of the speed. And
Wait, what is that formula?
so the inverse square root that I just talked about. That's the
What
Lorentz
is it?
factor.
Yes.
That's
What
your
is that?
Factor.
so that's your time dilation factor. It's how much
I feel
time
like I should be
slows
taking
down
notes.
Okay, how much time?
How much time slows down
when you're moving at a constant speed.
when you're moving at a constant speed?
Would it? I might regret asking this. Would it
making
help
notes.
to know why it's 1 over the square root of 1 minus?
So that's the thing.
Shamini, shut up. No.
if you work out the hypotenuse stuff, if you actually work
Yeah.
out the fraction difference between just bouncing up and down and actually taking that hypotenuse root, you recover this result. That's why there's because Pythagoras' theorem has got squares in it. That's why you have a square root in your result.
I have another question.
Yeah.
If the release of a photon can be considered to be instantaneous, can it? I don't know. Anyway, if I release a photon while I'm moving, wouldn't I just move away from where the photon was going?
We're assuming it's a very long mirror.
Well, no, because you are moving the photon. Sorry, the
Photon already has.
you are because in your
Because the
reference,
thing it's released from is moving.
This is the other thing to bear in mind is it's all
got
relative.
mass.
So you are moving. The
all
thing that's
relative.
emitting the photon is moving, as is the mirror.
Yeah.
So as far as your
Yeah.
system is concerned,
Yeah.
it's just bouncing straight up and down. In the
Yeah.
same way that if you're on a train
Yeah.
and you bounce
Yeah.
a ball, it just goes up
Yeah.
and down.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is the other
A
thing.
ball does have mass, though.
Yes,
and
so but you
therefore-
get what I mean in terms of like everything is
Okay.
moving at the same
Yeah.
rate.
Okay.
So
But yeah, does the photon not because it's getting released as the thing's moving? Does that not affect that the photon moves in a slightly different direction?
no, because everything that it's interacting with is moving at exactly the same rate.
Okay.
So what does it keep?
I'm just going
Does
to
a
trust
photon
you on
have
that.
momentum?
Yeah, photon has momentum.
Momentum.
Yeah, well, yeah, it has to. 'cause
Even though it has no
can-
mass, it has momentum. Which is a bit of a strange one to think about.
Okay.
But anyway.
It's like throwing a pass in rugby backwards when you're running, and it sometimes looks like it goes a bit.
Yeah, so if you
forwards.
have 2 players who are running
Yeah.
and they're both, I know this is ignoring air resistant, classic physics.
Classic.
You throw the ball along the line to your other player. It's basically as if you were both stationary.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same thing happening with the photon being bounced between.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So in your reference frame with the clock, you are not moving, and so you see the clock going at its regular pace. But to someone else, they see the clock moving, and they see that your seconds are slow or longer.
They're like, "Come back! I can't see the clock anymore."
Yeah. But they can see that your clock is running slower than their clock being stationary. And
Wait, no, why?
Because they see the
is
path
just slower.
as being the
They just see that they just see the
velocity.
path of the
Yeah.
photon.
Whereas
I
if
see.
you are not moving relative to the clock, it's just going up and down. So yes, James Gunning's make excellent recommendation. Brian Cox actually wrote a good book called Why Does E Equals MC Squared? It's amazing.
It's amazing. Wow.
So yes, that's one I would highly recommend. I have a copy somewhere.
Wonderful.
And so what I was saying was the amount that it slows down is this Lorentz factor, which is pretty much, 1 for speeds that are very low. So, if you had a clock on a train and it was you on the platform, you wouldn't see any difference. It'd be basically no difference. Whereas when you start getting up to say half the speed of light, then suddenly you're looking at a Lorentz factor of like 0.75.
Because there's that bit where you divided it by the speed of light.
Yeah. So no,
So,
it would be 1.5, whatever. But yeah. So and as you get closer and closer to the speed of light, the fact that there is a 1 minus your fraction of the speed of light squared means that you end up with 0. But you end up with 0 on the denominator on the bottom, which is means
Add.
Wait a sec, slow down a sec. Wait a sec, let me just
Danger
read that
maths.
again. If it's your velocity divided by the speed of light, and your velocity is getting to be a bigger and bigger proportion of the speed of light, then 1 minus that bigger and bigger proportion is getting closer and closer to 1 minus 1, essentially, which is getting closer and closer to 0. Square root of 0. What's the square root of 0?
Sorry, I'm making notes. Can you tell me the formula again?
So it's 1 over the square root of 1 minus your speed is a fraction of the speed of light squared.
What is that nomenclature for your speed over the speed of
Well,
light?
V over divided by C.
Like V over C, and that's all. Okay,
That's
so,
all squared.
I've written this badly.
So not only are you taking the square root of 0, but you're also then dividing by that. So it's proper danger maths. You don't want to do it.
Wait, like this?
For the readers at home, but all that factor on the V over C factor is squared.
All of it. All of that V over C is squared.
Yeah, not 1 minus it, but V over C is squared.
Yeah, so this.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Yes! I'm a physicist now!
So
Yeah. Okay.
So the closer you get to the speed of light, that factor just ramps up and up towards being infinite, which is when we say that you cannot travel at the speed of light. It would mean that if you were to travel at the speed of light, your clock would be every second would be infinitely long, which is physically nonsense.
That doesn't make sense.
So you can't go at that speed. And there are other things that happen when you approach the speed of light. For example, your relative mass becomes infinite, and so it would require more and more energy for you to accelerate further. So
Okay, but it would only be actually infinite at the speed of light, so it's theoretically possible to get ever so close to the speed of light. The mass thing sounds like a problem, but the time thing, your time, if you were really close to the speed of light, but not so much that your time was the second was infinitely long, it would just be really slow.
And as Kyogi points out in chat, it's your second as observed by someone else gets infinite.
Not for you.
So for you, it's still a second.
You're like, boom, hanging
As expertly demonstrated in RPGeeks at the Absalom Files.
You should all go watch RPGeeks the Absalom Files.
And funnily enough, one of the applications of this is if you fell into a black hole. So as you get closer to a black hole, your personal time dilation factor gets higher and higher and higher. And as you approach the black hole, which is a singularity,
you're just chilling.
You're to an observer falling in, you fall slower and slower and slower in. But to you, you just fall straight in as if nothing's the matter.
Yeah, makes no difference.
Oh,
but it took to someone else on the outside an infinite amount of time for you to actually touch the black hole.
So you'd never get there?
Not to an outside observer, no.
So everything that's ever fallen into a black hole we could still see falling in right now?
But you get into weird stuff with redshift. Like the fact that as you get closer and closer, you get more and more redshift, which is actually related to the other form of time dilation. So
there's another form of time dilation.
What we just talked about was special relativity. So this is the idea that if you are moving at a constant speed, you have like a time dilation factor. That's the bouncing photon bit. This is the constant speed version. Special relativity. General relativity is what happens when you look at objects that are accelerating relatively.
Oh no, don't accelerate.
That sounds
complicated.
terrifying.
Do we need to know about that?
The maths that you need for special relativity.
But do we need those maths?
Well, for special relativity, you don't need a huge amount, much more complicated than what I just described. Like, it's actually quite
Simon's
simple.
not understanding the question.
But,
do we need...
You specifically, Emily Bates, do not.
Does our plot depend upon it?
But general relativity is like you need several courses in mathematics in order to even interact with this thing properly. Like, it's
Which
way
came
more
first,
complicated.
general or special?
Special came in 1905, and general, I think, in someone in chat will tell me I'm wrong. I want to say 1911.
That's
Yes.
quite close together.
Why did they call it special first?
Is it special?
Because
So I
special,
can
it was
understand why
for
it's
special
general.
cases, as in you were moving at a constant velocity.
Oh, that's the special case.
Mm.
And
can
yes,
understand
it was
why, yeah.
pre-World War One, because the first solution to the Einstein field equations, which are the general relativity equations, was made by Karl Schwarzschild, who was in the German army in the First World War, and he was the person who first mathematically described black holes. So he did that whilst convalescing, I think, from being injured on the front line. But anyway, so yeah, general relativity allows you to do accelerating shit, and there's this thing called the equivalence principle, which is that if you are accelerating, it is exactly the same as experiencing a gravitational acceleration. Like, gravity is just your local reference frame accelerating. This is going to be something that we can't get into too much technical
Do
detail.
you mean it feels the same?
Yeah,
'Cause it does feel the same. Like if you're like going really accelerating, you go, oh, and it's a bit like as
yeah.
if,
So you
you're
talk
being
about
tipped upside down.
g-forces, right? If you're in a rocket, you might pull a certain
Yeah.
number of g-forces going up,
Yeah.
which you measure in 1g is whatever you experience on Earth at sea level. But effectively, what relativity says is that by standing on the surface of the Earth, we are in a reference frame that is constantly accelerating kind of upwards because we are being pushed down the bottom. Obviously, that's not something...
But literally, or just as a metaphor?
It's as a metaphor. It's also... it was 1915, says James. Sorry, it wasn't 1911.
He might have had the idea in 1911.
I think he was
Took him 4
working on
years
the
to
maths.
write it.
He was working on the maths for, basically the best part of 10 years. So
There you go.
he was probably working on it. But yeah, it's a mathematical thing rather than physically you're imagining reference frame moving. And there are many consequences of that. This is the whole bending space-time thing. The degree to which space-time is being bent is the strength of the gravitational field. But one of the other things, which is what we're talking about today, is the greater the strength of gravity, the greater your time dilation factor. But it's a weaker form of time dilation than if you were moving at, say, close to the speed of light.
Heavier the black hole, more time dilation.
Exactly. This is what Interstellar was trying to represent, but failed miserably to do.
Still haven't seen it. Probably should have done before I put a black hole in my sci-fi game.
You're fine. You're not missing out on much.
This is not for the same reason. Do we know? Yeah, have you told us why? Should I know why that is? Why is more gravity, more time dilation? Because that's not related to the train. experiment that's
It's
really
sort of the
happening,
generalized version of that. It's been a long time since I've done the mathematics of this, so I can't give you the maths of it.
We don't need the maths, Simon.
No, but it's effectively
Okay.
the amount of mass you have in an area is how much space-time is warped. And that meaning both
The
space
ball
and
on
time
the
dimension.
cover.
Exactly. You've got a rubber sheet, you put a big bowling ball on it, and that's space-time being bent. And we experience that as an acceleration. But you also experience it as a weak form of time dilation. But remember, it's relative. So if you are all on the surface of the Earth, we all have effectively the same amount of time dilation.
Yeah.
You don't notice it. But because it's related to the strength of gravity, the further away you get from the Earth's surface, the faster you observe clocks to go. Because they're at a slightly weaker gravity. It's like the further...
if you were looking... Wait, if I'm on Earth looking up at the faraway clock, you mean? So if I was next to the clock, it would be the same. But if I'm...
Yeah, somebody who was looking down on Earth would see our clocks going slower. Us
Yeah.
looking up would see their clocks going faster.
Okay.
And it's like nanoseconds, but it is actually observable.
Well, they've done it on the ISS, haven't they?
Yeah, if
With
you...
clocks?
Yeah.
Like a giant clock.
They took a clock up. They took an atomic clock up, brought it back, and it was out of time with the other atomic clocks.
Yeah. When it's actually, if you want to use GPS, you have to account for gravitational time dilation, or the signals don't match up.
Simon told me this not that long ago, and it blew my mind.
Cool.
It's just, and there are various experimental confirmations. But I remember when I was an undergrad, we did a calculation. When would it have been? It was about 10 years ago now. There were this alleged observation of neutrinos going faster than the speed of light at CERN, and it was like by a tiny fraction of a second too early arriving. And we did this calculation that was like, if you were to leave the clock that they were using at the top of Mont Blanc for like 2 weeks, that would have been enough for it to have shifted out of time. And if you brought it back down, that would have been enough to ruin the experiment that you're actually running. So actually, not that high and not that long. It is still an observable factor. But what we were experiencing close to the black hole was this, enormous time dilation because the strength of the gravitational field was so large. If you want to think of it, it's basically where the gradient of the potential is large. This large effect, which near a black hole is the most intense that this is ever going to get.
You're quite far away from it.
But the thing with black holes is that they come in different sizes, right? So if you have a small black hole, the gradient of your gravity near it is going to be way larger. There's a larger relative change in gravitational field.
I mean, it gets sucky really quickly as you go nearer, whereas if it's big, it'll get gradually.
You're getting pulled from further away if it's big.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
But if it's small, you can get closer. But then when you get close, it's like no one fucking happened yet.
And so it means that you have what's called large tidal forces. So if you have an object that's near a black hole, say like an apple is hanging outside next to a black hole that's also the size of an apple.
We're doing orange.
The side of the apple that's closest is experiencing really strong gravity and correspondingly really strong gravitational dilation. But on the far side, it's weaker. And so it's being squeezed.
Is this spaghettification?
It's spaghettification.
You mentioned spaghettification.
So the closer
being squeezed in time?
Yeah, so one side is also experiencing time at a different rate to the other side.
The apple wouldn't notice the difference.
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, it's a bit unethical to try and run this as an experiment, but I don't know.
With an apple?
It's unethical to apples.
You could do it with an apple.
But if you were to do it with a human, say,
apples.
Would you see your legs, if you were to fall feet first into a black hole, you would see your legs be stretched out further and further and further.
Because you're further away from your legs than you. If you went in feet first, you would see your toes suddenly disappearing into the black hole far, far away.
Well, but also, there's the whole thing about slowing down and slowing down.
Yeah.
Weird thing. But you would, you get spaghettified, stretched out.
But you wouldn't actually, because you'd feel fine and you'd be like, my legs work.
Yeah,
it's just a perception thing.
And then you just be in the black hole. And you said you just feel like you went straight in the black hole. So if my feet go in first, how do I then observe my feet taking forever to go into the black hole? If you say I just immediately go into the black hole, Simon.
Well, you'd see your body stretch out and then you would follow, you would follow in, but
you just said, but they're ahead of you.
Yeah, but that's assuming that you're going in like a plane.
But I guess,
like that. Like if you're going feet first, you experience things different. The other thing to bear in mind is it's not so interesting to watch your feet fall into the black hole. If you look up, you see the outside universe go faster and faster and faster and faster.
Oh yeah.
Because your clock is going slower relative to the rest of the universe.
Start seeing the stars wheeling and like planets orbiting.
A little bonus thing for when I was coming up with this, I considered having, and I didn't do it, having screens around the hotel, like showing like TV, like news loops, like on like really quickly going. But I didn't because I didn't want to give away any of the stuff that would have changed when you got back to Absalom, for example. But yeah, that was one of the things I considered doing, was they somehow had a feed of the like news channels on various planets that they could show really quickly, so you could kind of see the glimpses of what the big headlines were. Yeah.
But it also forms a practical consideration for with the spar that we visited orbiting a black hole. That implies that it must be a large black hole, otherwise the tidal forces would be absolutely enormous being that close. Magic.
What did you say?
I said magic.
Any sufficiently advanced technology and all that.
It just had to be magic, because there's no clever way of doing that without magic. I tried to come up with a way you could survive getting very close to a black hole, and I couldn't think of one, and neither could the internet when I googled it. So I went, cool, we'll magic that one away.
Simon's a doctor of physicists.
I didn't ask him because he's going to be in the game.
I'm going to be like, come up with something now, Simon.
Yeah, Simon, how would you survive black hole?
Fix the problem.
How would Dr. Simon Clark survive being pulled into a black hole?
Wait, hang on. Survive being pulled in,
Are we all
or
technically
make
being
the spar?
pulled into? Are we all technically being pulled in towards Sag star in our galaxy?
We're orbiting it. We're falling at the rate that our.
But is that technically? Are we being? Is the orbit being caused because we are spiraling towards it?
No, I
Like
think it's
even
a stable
super
orbit.
slow? It's a stable
I
orbit.
think
Okay.
it is.
I just wasn't sure. That was my question.
What was? Oh yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say. Was like, just to sort of wrap up this discussion. Whenever you talk about any facet of general relativity, when you're talking about time, you can sort of inverse it and start thinking about space, because the two things are sort of like, flip, two sides of the same coin. So you can also imagine that as well as your clock going, an observer would see you falling into the black hole and your clock going slower and slower. Imagine, this is the way that my brain likes to see it, that scene from Wallace and Gromit where they're on a train and Gromit is putting the tracks down.
Yeah.
In front. If he was to do that going into a black hole, in his reference frame, he wouldn't see anything strange. He'd be putting down the track,
Other than laying a train track.
And each track would be the same length. For somebody on the outside, the inverse of their clock getting slower is that they get Lorentz contracted, which means their distance that they are covering gets smaller. And so to an outside observer, Gromit would be putting down tracks that would get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Right next to each other.
Yeah, and so if you're thinking about about infinite time to approach the black hole, the equivalent of that is him putting down these tracks that get closer and closer and closer to zero asymptotically.
That's clever.
But yeah, I am not necessarily a great source for this. If people would like a book to read, I'd recommend Why Does E = MC Squared. I'd also recommend, we already mentioned him, Feynman. Feynman wrote a very famous series of lectures on physics called Feynman Lectures on Physics, but he also took out certain lectures and packaged them up. There's one book called 6 Easy Pieces, which is about kind of physics in general, and there's one called 6 Not So Easy Pieces, which is about relativity and recovering some of these. So if people found this interesting, I'd highly recommend giving that one a read. It's very, very accessible. You need like maybe high school level maths, but that's about it. And they're brilliantly written. If you found this interesting, which I think you should, because I think it's really cool, that's how you can learn more.
Nice.
But I want to say, I think it's a really cool way of using the idea of time dilation in the story baits. I think I love the way that you've incorporated it.
It was really cool.
How did it come up? I can't remember. I knew I wanted to do black holes basically I wanted black holes as a topic for this because I think black holes are fascinating.
Working backwards from our science section.
I kind of was like, I love black holes. I think they're fascinating. Like, I made a documentary on them once and I've been obsessed ever since. And so I wanted that in there and I was like, oh, well, I can't have them go to a black hole. That would be ridiculous. They die. And then I was like, oh, hang on. Magic is a thing. And then I was like, right, what can I do with the fact that there's like this time dilation thing? And then I realized, as I was like working through the story, I realized that there was it was like a potential, I want to survive another year. And, if there was a way to survive by a black hole, basically, I can say this, I think this is kind of what we would normally talk about on our behind the screens episodes, but it won't come up again. So there was a bit when you first went into Horizons where there was a couple and everyone was like, enjoy the wedding.
Oh yeah.
And in my head, that was one of them was like terminally ill and about to die, and they wanted to make it to like their daughter's wedding, and so they went to Horizons for like 30 minutes and then they could go back and they could be there for the wedding day.
Ouch, Bates. What? How
You were never going to find that out. There was no like, unless like you'd literally run over to them at that moment and been like, what's going on? And then I would have given you the story. Or like if you'd asked someone about what that was, then I would have given you the story, but you'll never find out now. So I thought I might tell you because I was like, in my head, that's one of the reasons that people might want this kind of thing. Or like, if you had like, fuck it, I'll give you all the things. There was a small child, like, and their parent was like talking to someone at reception. There were a lot of diseases, but that was what the good reasons for this sport in my head. And the idea was that this small child like had like an currently incurable disease, and the mom was checking in about whether it had been cured on the planet that they were from. Because the idea was they could be there for a day, and then maybe she could take her kid back, and they'd be able to cure her child.
Well, no, I've got no one emotional now. This is too, we have a fun
using science to emotionally hurt your friends. Join me, Emily Bates, on RPGeeks.
Yeah, come watch the Absalom Files. It's great. It's sci-fi 80s fun. This is very silly.
You might cry.
Yeah.
You didn't talk to them, so it's fine.
No, it's so good. You just hit me with it now. Yeah, I think we should have a
A quick break. Yeah.
And before we come back with some stuff on cloning, we're jumping from the physics to the biology, which I'm planning on understanding more. But like Simon, you did it.
Thanks very much to Hogan in the chat saying if I had 1 minute left to live, I'd have Simon explain maths to me because that seemed like forever.
Way.
A personal form of time dilation. Talking to me is like doing a plank.
Yeah.
I watched a video just before we go to break on I think it was YouTube of like the woman who's like held the plank for the longest. She held it for hours.
No,
like it was I can't. It was either 4 or 14. I think it was probably 4 hours. But either way, I was like, that's ridiculous. Maybe it was longer. I don't know. Anyway, it was horrible, and like her shoulders looked like they were like awful. Because that's what gets me on the plank is my shoulders start to hurt. Whenever I've been doing a plank and I've been in pain, it's because my shoulders hurt, not
your core,
not my core or my back. But that's when you're holding it wrong. Anyway, I haven't done a plank for years. When I used to do planks,
back in the day.
Back in the day. Cool. Right. Okay. We should have a break.
We'll go on a quick
be
break.
back shortly. Don't go anywhere, or do. We're your friends. We're not going to force you to do anything.
We're not cops.
Bye.
You can trust us.
It's not your stream, Simon. It's our one. You don't get to say your cops thing.
Bye.
Right, bye. Welcome back, everybody. Hello, we're the RP Geeks. How you doing? We've had a break. Shamini's eating a breadstick, and
tonight on Top Gear.
Tonight on
Shamini
RP Geeks.
eats a breadstick.
Badass.
Oh, tell you something that happened to me earlier today.
What happened to you earlier today?
I haven't shared this with you yet. I had an invite. Okay, let me put it like this. I had a message on Instagram from somebody, and this was the
slid into your DM.
This might be the greatest DM anyone has ever slid into my inbox because it opens the first sentence. Greetings. I present an invitation from the Illuminati Society.
Stop it.
You made it.
You're in the Illuminati now, Si. Congrats.
Based on the membership criterion, there's only one, of the Illuminati, we find you of great interest in possession of a good mastery of manual dexterity and academic proficiency.
Oh, how have they found out how manually dexterous you are?
I don't know. They've hidden that camera very well. With this, we look at you
It's not what Pixel Wife told me.
as the class that will be the platform for which you stand to meet the wealthy people who can raise you to wealth, power, fame, and glory.
The wealthy people who can raise you to wealth. Phenomenal.
I strongly recommend that you join us in the Illuminati. Joining us, you become...
You're not meant to say.
Joining us, you become wealthy and live the life you desire. Do you accept the offer?
Did you say yes?
Tell me whether you're meant to say. Did it say keep this a secret?
Yeah, because I think you might have like.
I feel like if I say yes, I become like a warlock. Have I just made a pact?
Oh,
is that Illuminati?
No, I think you just join a cult. Really, more than anything.
What is a warlock if not a cult member?
Yeah.
Isn't that? No, I'm just thinking of the Ku Klux Klan now. I'm like, weren't they all grand wizards and that? Like, don't do that.
Yes, that is Ku Klux Klan,
right?
isn't it?
Yes, they were grand wizards. Imagine taking someone.
Is that Freemasons? Just to...
Oh shit, I don't know.
Can you imagine?
No, they're not wizards. The Freemasons aren't wizards.
Having to take someone seriously who calls himself the Grand Wizard, like that's his official title.
I just think of the Grand Magus every time I hear it. Oh, Quark,
it's me!
That sounds pretty good. Don't become the Grand Magus.
I find cults fascinating, but like not like boring ones where it's just like Elon Musk's fans, but like, you know, like proper cult. Well, yeah, dangerous ones. Not that I want anyone to get hurt, but I do like true crime documentaries on cults. That is my favorite kind of true crime documentary.
Wild Country was a good Netflix show. If you've watched that one.
No, I didn't. Is that about a cult?
That's about the cult that tried to take over the state of Washington. It was one of the states on the American West Coast. They tried to influence the election by giving... It was the largest case of mass poisoning in American history.
Whoa.
It was very good. It was that was it. It was a sex cult. I forgot that bit.
Yes, we love a sex cult. Yes. I mean, we don't, but great. The one that I really enjoyed and is mental and far too recent to like make me feel uncomfortable how recent it was. It's called Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey on Netflix, and it's this cult. I watched it a while ago, but it really like freaked me out, and like
I think so. Yeah, I think like that was
awful.
Like, very much a continuation of like sort of Christian subgroup
Yeah.
into cultish territory, wasn't it?
Yeah, how religion can very quickly become a cult. And what is the difference? Well, anyway, we won't talk about that.
This
we're
feels
going
like
to
the,
talk
this
about.
feels like the perfect fodder for conversation for our light-hearted D&D stream. All
getting
religions
too-
are cults.
Are all religions cults? Go. No. We're going to talk about cloning, which, to be fair, would be a great way to make your own cult if you could just clone yourself.
Get on with all the members. Actually, I'd hate that all the members of the
No,
cult of
they'd all-
clones.
they'd
of
all
me.
want to be the
I
cult
couldn't do that
leader,
because I'd be
wouldn't
like, "Can you all fuck off? I hate you." I have to clone my friends, so I'd have more friends. Simon, Shamini, how do you feel about that? Maybe.
Oh, I mean,
Maybe.
that's kind of sweet. Yeah, I mean,
'Cause then you
sure.
could be here all the time,
I mean, I see.
play games with me all the time.
Like, I like my life. So if there was double my life,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to
Okay.
get a new job.
Shamini, would you like to do your why are we talking about cloning?
I'm just thinking about whether I want
For
to be
cults.
cloned.
But the thing is, would you, like, surely you'd have to
Yes.
split
Well,
the
maybe at the end of
load
this you'll have an answer.
with the clone, right?
Wait,
There's so many practical concerns with that.
There's a lot of practical concerns with cloning, which we will get into
Ah,
shortly.
like in that show with that nice young man who's an actor.
You sound like my grandmother, but yes.
Oh, he's such a nice young man. He's very good. In the TV show, you know the one on the
An
telly.
Ant-Man? Who's Ant-Man?
Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd?
Yes. He might be Paul Rudd. On
Is that because he doesn't age? So you're just assuming he's got lots of clones, and then
No,
they just,
no,
one of
there
them
was a-
replaces
no.
him every year.
There
That's
was
a
a-
brilliant theory. That's why he doesn't age. He's just been breeding a new Paul Rudd clone every year, and then each year he just kills off the previous one and replaces it. Perfect. Well done. Is there a show where he's a clone?
Maybe.
Okay, right. I haven't seen that. If
Or
there
it could
is,
be
so-
someone else who's not Ant-Man.
Oh,
Listen, guys, on the Absalom
Love Paul Rudd.
Files.
oh yeah. What happened? Go.
What happened was, we're all chilling out, right? People are living their normal life. Suddenly, farm girl from Snow Planet is like, "Oh, well, hello, spa lady who seems to have escaped from a spa. Why is your face blurry?" At which point, that lady disintegrates. That's odd, right? We go around. That mystery is just unsolved for ages. We're just like, what's that about? And then someone turns up, spoiler alert, and says, "Ah, I got the answer. Clones. It's all clones. Everything
Doesn't
is
sound like a
clones."
clone.
The answer to every question is, in fact, clones.
Yep.
Including the question of why everyone's in on it. It's a conspiracy. It's great.
You all
It's a
just
clone.
believed Anne Lara when she told you.
Yeah,
She's an authority figure. When have they ever lied to us?
yeah. She's really cool, and her
She's
her
northern.
picture,
She's fine.
her picture was up on the wall of the spa. So
It was.
why wouldn't she be trustworthy? So I feel like we have not yet got to the end of the cloning based. We have not yet got to even probably to the middle.
The clone wars have only just begun.
Yeah, exactly. There was a
Yeah.
lot of cloning happening. And the question is it science? Is it sciencey?
Is cloning science?
And
Cloning's
like the cloning that has come up, how
So
much
okay, that is one of the things I
science?
want to talk about because no is the simple answer.
Aw.
So
His faces don't go blurry.
in what I will say is in and Lara's head, what is
Yeah.
happening? I will explain.
Yeah.
So and Lara's
Yeah.
original VR spa that she used to have, Grenlock Laguna Beach, it used to be called. It's been rebranded now. And so she would put people into little VR pods, and her technology would scan their body with like every single cell taken into account and replicated digitally. So she would do a full scan and to the atom be able to work out this person's
so that you
physical
got a
being,
computer model which you can test.
which you can then put into the VR experience. And then she linked that back up to the physical body, and it could experience all these things without, physically being there. So
I do have a
that's
question.
her tech,
I have a side question there.
which is
which
not
is-
currently doable. Yeah.
If you scan all of someone into a computer and create essentially a simulation of them, is that also then a digital clone?
That is a very good
Oh
question.
shit! Did I?
There's
Okay.
no.
Let's
There's
break
a
it
lot
up.
of ethics around the
Okay.
digital kind of thing, which, I think but then, when you get to the physical recreations, maybe there's even more ethics around it. But so with Anne Lara stuff, they were very much linked. So the brain of the person in the pod was still having the same experiences as the digital
yeah.
version.
They're
now-
never separated. Okay.
They never separated. So that's would be how Anne Lara would explain that as being okay. You could argue potentially that if you separated them and that digital avatar carried on living, it could carry on living in a digital world. But I hadn't thought about that in detail, but that is potential.
And Lara is sounding more and more irresponsible the more
what? She's very smart.
She's invented some tech, which is technically fine because of the way I do it, but
she's northern and talking about science. That means she's trustworthy and it's probably run on Steam.
Right.
Okay.
So it would basically to the atom, including all of their brain, neurons, nerves, etc. So now that kind of all comes down to then how you think about consciousness. So I'm gonna swerve a little bit into consciousness just for a second, because obviously you could say, well, hang on, just because you've made a physical recreation of someone, why does that make them them?
Are we just accumulation? Are we our matter? Are we just our matter? Are we?
Well, so there is now quite a big theory that our consciousness is just a thing that comes from our biological processes. And so if you could perfectly recreate to the atom what was happening in someone's body and let that continue, then yes, that would be, they would react the same way that the person they were cloned from would be.
It's an emergent phenomenon.
Emergent, exactly. So that I believe Anil Seth has sort of done the sort of biggest work on this, and he's got a book. I think it's called, I want to say Being You. I don't know. I think it's there's nothing we can do. And and he sort of
Shamini's gone.
He puts, because basically, everything we experience is all a matter of our brain processing stimulus from the outside world and giving us a good idea of what it thinks is going on out there. So, we say we're seeing and we are looking out, but actually that's just our eyes, our brain going, this is what the eyes have told me is out there, so I think it's probably this. Same with like touch, everything. And then when you get to the sense of self, which tends to be what people define as consciousness, the idea that you can very reliably say, I am me, I am experiencing this, you are you, you're experiencing something. Not entirely, but that's a big part of it. Then that also is, you can control that by your sense of self is also can come down to like interoception, so how you perceive your body and like feel things that you're feeling and not someone else is feeling. So he sort of puts forward that it does all come. Sorry,
mind body. So that's a sort of argument against this sort of mind body duality idea. It's like if you just took your brain or somehow the connections in your brain and put them in a jar in a computer, it wouldn't be you because your embedded experience of living in your body is an inherent part of you. Maybe
I don't know actually, because I would think, I don't know what Seth would say on that with this theory that I've kind of basically assumed for this world as being correct. So I don't know what he would say on that, because you are taking the brain, which is the thing doing all the processing and all of the, it's where you hold like your memories and everything like that. So that's an interesting point. I wouldn't know what they would say, but it's whether you believe that then all of your consciousness arises from the brain, which isn't necessarily true, because obviously you have other areas that can kind of hold, like your gut and things has nerves
people have
that
like
can
heart
affect how you,
feel
even if you don't,
their personality changes and stuff like that.
Is that, I don't know about the science of that. Is that
I'm aware of at least one case where that's been reported. Somebody has, I think it was a heart transplant, and they like started writing poetry afterwards.
Could that just be going through a very big trauma?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe having but okay, but that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, potentially. So you could argue, but in the case in the Absalom Files, it is a perfect recreation. That's her technology. Her technology has been bought. Her spa was bought by a company called Parallel, and
remember that name.
Parallel.
Significant.
And fun fact, I came up with that name about 2 minutes before I had a call with Shamini, where I was like, oh shit, I should have a name for this overarching company that bought her thing that's going to be like a central antagonist. Anyway, doesn't matter.
They're the bad guys?
What? Shit. I keep giving away stuff. But what they've done is they've taken that technology and they are basically, in Andlara's mind, using 3D printing a human. So they are then taking that technology and then creating that person. And in theory, if you believe the Anil Seth theory of consciousness, that would be that person. That is an exact clone at the moment in time that clone was created. So because obviously in real science life, cloning, you don't clone someone to the exact point that you take the cell from. You create an embryo and you grow the embryo, which basically means that clones don't ever really become exact clones of the parent. They genetically will be, but because of environment and everything else around, from the minute you are born, you become more than just the sum of your DNA. And so that's why this is so it literally becomes an exact clone. So you know, Dolly the sheep was not born with the memories of her singular parent, because she literally just is the DNA. So she's just a genetic clone. Like twins.
A twin,
identical twins are genetic clones of each other, but they are not clones in the sense that they have the same memories, and that is what supposedly is going on over at Parallel. Because real world cloning produces a baby, not a replica, basically. And
not a body in a vat. There was a Deep Space Nine episode once where there was just this mound of flesh that gradually formed into a person. Remember this, Simon? And they were like, what is it? We don't know. And then it became more human-like, and then it woke up and was like, hello.
Oh, was that Odo's? Was it a founder?
I don't think so, because it wasn't goop. It was flash. It wasn't cool. It wasn't dope.
Oh, I've only recently watched Deep Space Nine. I can't remember that.
That does come up. That does actually bring up the question of, like, if you're cloning someone, you know, you've got the copy of the digital scan, and then you've got the paste, the 3D printing. Like, does it, like, by layer? Like,
that's a good question. I assume it would be like internal out, right? So you maybe start with the skeleton, and then so you do a layer of skeleton, better. Then a layer of like muscles, then you fill in all the gaps. But you also have to imagine it would have to. Well,
what point does it? Oh shit!
That's a great question. I don't.
The 3D printer like works its way up from the top to bottom, and as it finishes your mouth, it just starts screaming.
Oh god.
Maybe they like leave the. I feel like the brain would probably be the very last.
So you 3D print the whole body,
does that
apart
work?
from the brain, and then you put the brain in, close the hinge. And then
seal quickly.
But again, that's kind of taking this idea that the
you're
brain
taking
is
a real
separate from the rest of the body. If the brain,
the brain is where the perception happens, right?
It's the CPU
integrated and part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, not sure, but you know, consciousness is so crazy. I did a neuroscience degree. You might not believe it from the way I talk about it sometimes, but I did. And we had a module on philosophy of the mind. We had to do one philosophy module, and it was basically what is consciousness. And I loved it, but I came out every time like, why do I do this? This is insane. I'm losing my mind. Help.
Amazing.
But what I wanted to talk about was, so these clones in our world don't seem to be functioning very well. They're dying. They're they're having issues with remembering things. They are falling down, sleeping. They're struggling. They're not coming out as perfect as perhaps.
But she said she also implied that was just teething problems for the tech, and that the 3D printing process wasn't going very well. But they could well have improved it since then. Like, they could have perfected it by now.
Yeah. So what I want to talk about, well, what are the actual like real life issues with
probably not
cloning
being
things
smudged. Where did you get the being smudged from?
Cannot tell you the being smudged stuff.
It's it's going to be so important, guys.
Yeah,
smudged and then just bang gone. So not quite.
Bad. Didn't like that.
So 95 to 97% of animal cloning attempts apparently end in failure. So in general, it goes wrong really bad. Now, to be fair, I've taken that stat from a 2002 paper, but there now isn't a lot of cloning done. It is done on very few animals, and they brought in some new laws, I believe. I haven't fully looked into the laws, but after Dolly and things, they started going people were like, cool, let's clone some people, and everyone was like, oh no, stop that.
How I feel about that.
Bang. So you can't clone people. Sorry, everyone. And fun fact, the scientists who cloned Dolly, how many times do you think they failed before they succeeded in producing a single alive clone?
200?
That's very close. It's higher.
I've got to go slightly higher. Or so. I was gonna take the gamble.
Go on, have a go. See how well you do.
224.
276 times. So, you know, Dolly wasn't the only one. There were other dollies who were clones of Dolly. They were taken from the same, well, so by being a clone Dolly, they're from the same parent, but they were the same as Dolly. But they came later on. They sort of used the cells further down the line. But you know, there's been a lot of studies, and most of the studies were done in like the early 2000s, so post Dolly. People were clearly like, we're gonna create a load of clones and see what happens. The clone sheep army, but they die quite quickly often, and an idea got put forward that this might be because of telomeres. So who knows what a telomere is? Shamini?
They're the things on the end of your DNA.
At the end of your chromosomes, yeah. Okay. So they which is your DNA wrapped up. So they sit on the end of your chromosomes, and it's a particular sequence of what are they called? Not genes. What are the letters? What are they called?
Bases.
Bases. Thank you. The letters that live inside you and make proteins happen. Just imagine we're all made up of tiny little letters. And the telomere sequence for humans is very short. It's just TTAGGG. That's it. That's and that basically what it does is every time your cell. That's it. It's 6 letters long.
Telomeres were like really long.
So that's you can have more than one of those telomeres. So they act like what they do is they act like a little cap on your DNA, because every time a cell replicates, the chromosomes get shortened, and by like about I think it's from like 20 to like 300 bases get like lopped off just via the mechanism of how DNA replicates. And so the telomeres are there so they can be the things that get chucked off the end.
You need a lot of them. I got a lot of them, right?
You've got about, I think it's, I had that number. I don't know. I don't have it in my notes. I think they think people have between like 3,000 to 15,000 sections. But you also, so there's an enzyme called telomerase. Telomerase. I don't know how you say it. Telomerase. It's not that. It's an enzyme related to telomeres, and it creates telomeres. It like produces telomeres to add on to the DNA, but it doesn't exist. It's in very low concentrations through most of your somatic cells, which is basically every cell other than your sex cells. So your like for sperms and eggs, which has tons of it because they're like make a long telomere. And also, fun fact, cancer cells have loads of it, which is why cancer can keep replicating and not die. So there's definitely like therapies they're looking into about reducing telomerase in cancer patients, because supposedly it might be a better way of stopping it. Not sure where they're at on that, but but if you run out of your telomeres, that's what causes cell death. Basically, that's when the body goes, cool, it's dead now. Kill it, because you can't replicate anymore. It won't successfully replicate. And there was the idea that, they've often been linked to aging. Yeah, and it's a bit of a
makes sense.
It does make sense. However, the more recent study, there was a lot of telomere stuff done again, early 2000s, like when cloning was a big thing. They've recently been looking at it, and they're not sure it's quite as simple as shorter telomeres. You're gonna pop your clogs, all your cells are going to die quicker, because you don't lose that much each time. Like it's not like one day suddenly all your telomeres are gone and you drop dead. Like that's not what old age is. It can be the cause of why you start to look older and that kind of aging, but your body can kind of replicate it. But they thought originally because the telomeres were being taken from, when you're creating a clone, they're taking a cell from an adult, and then when they grow that cell into, so Dolly, for example, they think they might have had she might have had shorter telomeres, which is why she died early. She had
it was a lung disease.
I think that's right. Yeah, something like that.
That might not have been a coincidence.
So that's what they're saying. That was what was one of the things. But it happens a lot with clones. I was reading here. So there was a calf that died and it had been cloned from a skin cell, and then it seemed to develop normally for the first month, but then it got like an enlarged heart, and like just lots of things go wrong with these clones, and they're actually not 100% sure why. And telomeres is sort of the best solution, but but now people are like, well, telomeres aren't as important as people thought they were, and there's a whole basically people don't know because they don't do many clone experiments. They'll never do them on humans.
So has a cloned, or even is it possible to partially clone something?
I mean,
can you take artificially part of something's genome?
I think you're getting into sort of. I mean, with CRISPR and various DNA technologies, you can change genes and insert other genes and things like that. But I don't think they've ever sort of done like a half and half. Other than taking egg and sperm and creating a new, which then wouldn't be a clone, right? So
this also wouldn't be a clone, but could you take an egg from an individual and then take a cell and turn it into a sperm cell and then self-fertilize a human?
Yeah, I guess in theory, because
wouldn't be a clone.
And then also you'd have the longer telomeres because you'd be using one of the sex cells, one of the gametes, rather than
theoretically not have the medical problems.
Yes. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Yes.
no. Maybe the answer is no.
Yes.
Maybe I wonder if there is a mechanism in the body to stop your a self-fertilization, for example.
James Gurney is saying
like inbreeding, right? It'd be like you'd get a lot of recessive diseases.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
James Gurney's in the chat saying that yes, we do actually do partial cloning all the time. Switching mitochondria is a thing. But
that's a separate genome.
Oh yes, you have mitochondrial DNA.
Yeah. I'm just wondering is there a way to self-fertilize, James, in the chat? Please help.
Can you make your own custard?
Thanks, go.
Are we...
We're back to the platypus again. I think I accidentally deleted half of my notes. So if everyone could just talk amongst themselves about cloning.
Undo a few times. Let's enjoy that.
That might lose
I'm not sure if I would want to lay egg.
Physically?
I don't really like having eggs. They annoy me and they hurt sometimes.
Oh, it's the egg's fault. I guess it's kind of the egg's fault.
Kind of the egg's fault.
It's kind of wild that, if you have kids, you've carried that egg with you for your entire life up until that point. Eggs number 1.
How does it still survive?
Eggs 1 through 492 did nothing, but egg 493, you.
How many? Because there are certain cells in your body that are getting.
With your eggs, you start with a set number. Yeah. And then, but they're not fully developed. Each month, the body's like, I'm gonna be the one today, or this month, and then that was my mime of an egg.
I'm remembering this. So certain cells in your body, like my skin is, maybe all of my skin is no older than a few months old or something like that.
Yeah, so there's different.
Might be wrong.
There's different rates.
Nerve cells, if I've got a nerve cell, that's it. That's my nerve cell. You can't regrow them. You can't add extra ones. You just change the synapses and connections.
Yeah, which is a good question around telomeres, and because I don't know the answer to whether your telomeres are longer in your skin, because I don't think that's true. I'm going to Google it. Carry on.
Is it because they're not replicating from other skin cells? They're replicating from stem cells?
Oh yeah, probably.
Oh yes.
I don't know why that would make a difference.
I don't know anything about
that. Would make a difference. You get pluripotent stem cells, which can become anything,
and which presumably live longer, and therefore aren't constant.
Or they're the ones they would have telomerase in them as well.
Okay, yeah.
Because they're not the somatic cell.
The whole point of them is to be
anything. Be ready.
That
would make sense.
That's your body.zip basically. It's the compressed version of all of your genetic information, self-sustained.
Cute.
The role of telomeres in aging human skin. Okay, go.
80,000 words.
It's a very long paper. It's a paper. I've made a
You're
mistake.
reading a paper.
Really going quick. I'm going to read the abstract. We'll be fine. Carry on.
This is how for people that don't know, people at home, when people say they've read a paper, normally what they mean is they've read the abstract and then scrolled to the conclusions, and that's probably if you're lucky, maybe picked out the figures.
Very enlightening.
Yeah. It's honestly quite rare that in my work
the
I need to read an entire paper. Quite frequently I will read the abstract and go, oh, there's this section that I want to read, and you zoom in on that section. Very few people read whole papers.
Here we go. Telomerase is also active in certain somatic cells, such as those in the epidermis, i.e., in the skin, so that you have slightly more telomerase in the skin.
Wow.
I assume because it's replicating more. So there you go. So it can add more of the telomeres to the
Skin
end.
facts.
Skin facts.
I was just
Telomeres in skin cells may be particularly susceptible to accelerated shortening because of both proliferation and DNA damaging agents such as reactive oxygen species.
It gets like attacked from the
Because
active
so that's the
world.
other way that so other than DNA not splitting, replication is oxidation is killer for chromosomes. So that's another thing that telomeres block, because they're the ones that get taken out by it rather than the actual DNA that's telling you how to be you. They're like a little guard for your chromosomes. Sorry, that was an excuse to go on a little bit of a sidestep onto telomeres, because I think they're fascinating. And I wasn't aware of this sort of new thing of people being like, actually, we're not 100% sure. They basically went through, and I think it was smoking or something, and people were saying, smokers have shorter telomeres. Oh, this is it. This is what I want to talk about. Where are my notes on this? This is what I wanted. I remember now. Sorry, this is how my brain works. Suddenly talk about something and then remember. So telomeres in smokers, they found are shorter. And they were like, great, smoking shortened your telomeres. And then someone went through sort of various other papers looking at the same thing and did meta-analysis, and they realized that the amount they were shortened by wouldn't be, they'd have to shorten like a crazy amount per year. It wasn't feasible. I might be misquoting this slightly, but either way, they were like, we think they were, maybe we've got the correlation causation wrong.
Oh no.
And actually people with shorter telomeres are just more likely
to smoke.
And because they think by the time you've left primary school, basically, your telomeres are kind of just going to start going. That's it. You've had your time for your telomerase to do the things, and then that's how quick you're going to lose your telomeres. So
there must be an evolutionary advantage to have a population with a variety of telomere levels, then, right? Otherwise, why would you not just all have as many as possible?
That also comes down to the question of.
Well, I think it's what causes them to be shorter, and the idea is
have limited lifespan at all, right? Why is evolution?
I always assumed that it was a population, like a predator-prey dynamic thing. Like species that had too long a lifespan being active would just strip an area of resources too quickly. Because
why don't you just have fewer of them then?
Well, yeah, but that would be. But yeah, but the species that tend to live for a very long time are lower in number, right? Like whales, large predators and stuff like that live for relatively long periods of time.
James makes a good point in chat. Maybe evolution doesn't really work on the population level. It works on more of the individual.
But that's why it's interesting, right? Because the answer to why wouldn't you just live forever is very much a population level answer.
That's true.
Better overall for the evolution of the species to not live together, to have next generations with new changes and adaptations. Whereas for the individual, it's I should probably just try and live forever and spread my genes forever.
You have to have sex with everybody. That's the ideal thing for me to do. Yeah. That's how evolution works.
Pretty sure I read that in the Origin of Species. That's Darwin's original
text. You should have
text.
Sex with everyone. But yeah, this whole the telomere and smoking correlation causation thing, and because they think basically that. Damn, I wish I had my notes on this. That when you're traumatic events when you're younger, and potentially maternal factors when your mother's pregnant with you, or your maternal parent is pregnant with you, and that can determine how long your telomeres will be for the rest of your life. So good luck. Don't fuck up children. Everyone. That's the
RPGeeks. We're signing out today saying, good luck, children. Don't fuck up.
Don't fuck up your children. And so, yeah, that's I mean, that's pretty much what I've got, because cloning humans, we don't do it, thankfully, because I didn't want to go into the ethics of it. No. It's bad. This is obviously a different kind. It would be a different kind of ethics, this, because, I think there's been sci-fi where people are like, oh, I really just want to see my wife again. And they talk about cloning them. But with science as it stands today, the way we create clones is you have a baby. Yeah. So you got to wait until you're relevant. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter. But whereas in the story with the 3D printing, the human from the genetic thing. You could argue that I can make a decision
Yeah.
that I want another me. That
Yeah.
me will want another me
It's
because
also made that
it is
decision.
exactly
You've also,
me.
It's you. You made the
Yeah.
decision. You also made the decision. Yeah.
So,
Because if we perfect the technology, but also even with the babies, if we perfect the technology so there's no health risks,
which there are currently, yeah.
which there are currently, but let's say we perfect it on animals and it's all perfect and we're like, we're amazing, we can definitely clone people, and I want to have a baby that's my own clone because I'm slightly self-centered.
Hey, within the story, you could just have the baby and then you go to the spa around the black hole.
But sorry, just to say,
Wait for a couple of
you have your own baby. You have you as a baby, right?
Yeah.
It's not you because the minute it is born,
Yeah, but it's still clone.
it's not gonna. It's a genetic clone, but this isn't what they're doing. But I think the minute it's a genetic clone, not a. We'll call them a true clone.
But I guess my question
you
is,
don't.
do you
Your
think
brain
there's-
now isn't that child's
No.
brain.
But do you think there's still ethical issues around human genetic cloning? I guess is my question. Like, are there?
Yes.
What are they? I don't know. Have not looked into it. But
I mean, I think.
you did say you didn't want to get into it.
Yeah,
I'm like, but tell
obviously,
me more
the
about the
ethics
things you
of.
don't want to get into.
Well,
Philosophy.
I mean, I think some of the biggest ethical problems are that people don't really know exactly how it works and what the case would be, and also, a lot of the reasons for wanting clones, if you actually think about if none of the ethical, moral issues existed,
Yeah.
the good reasons for having clones,
Yeah.
very good for science.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
There we go. For science.
It's why identical twins are so useful for science, because their DNA is exactly the same. Their life experience isn't, so they are different and they are different people. It's why we don't say that identical twins are the same person. Don't say identical twins are the same person. They are different people because they have different lived experiences and different nature around them. Even if it's just for like a day, they went to a different place. All of that can affect how they grow up as a person.
Not even on a day for a different place. Like literally, like I'm a baby lying here versus I'm a baby lying there, and like every you can't have everything cannot be identical unless you're in a holodeck. What if you raise them in a holodeck where every touch was exactly the same? Every glance, every.
Don't tell Aunt Lara this. She'll
God.
be all over that. Don't tell me that. Maybe that's what's happened.
Plus, one is normally evil and one is normally good, so great for psychology studies.
That's true. That is true. The one on the left is the bad one.
But Aaron makes the good point that, consider, however, that Elon Musk could clone himself several times.
Yeah, I mean, so Aaron raises the point of cloning organs. Yeah, I mean, obviously that is a thing that people really are working on, like taking stem cells and turning them into a heart. So it's literally your heart that you're replacing. Although if it's like a congenital disease, probably don't want your own one. But but basically it all does come down to the idea of consciousness, right? It comes down to this idea that I am me, only me and me. So let's say, for example, in the world, you've got Sarah, who got cloned by Parallel.
Oh,
and here's Sarah. Now, Sarah thinks she's Sarah.
Yeah,
Sarah thinks she's Sarah. Both are Sarah. Who's Sarah? When she goes home and there's her husband, Bob.
Yeah.
And Bob's like, well, which one of you's my wife? Which one of you has been married to me for the last 50 years? And they got mixed up in the car, so they're not sure. And they go,
even if
oh shit,
hadn't been mixed up in the car, there is a sort of
doesn't really matter
philosophical question of
they both have those memories.
Of matter is important. Shit.
And then you get into Ship of Theseus, which if you replace every plank on a ship, is it still the same ship? Which is what our bodies do anyway. What is it? Is it every 7 years, or is that a myth? I don't know if that's the actual correct one. That's what people say. Every 7 years, you're a new person.
You had to buy twice as many birthday presents. God. I mean, on one level, having
double
a
wife.
clone of wife on some accounts sounds great. On other accounts, that's a massive practical.
Well, we clone you as well, and then there's two of you.
What if you like one of the Simons better? Because
I get competitive.
But the minute they're separate, the minute they are separate, they're different people. The minute they're born, they are a different entity. They just have the same back catalogue of memories.
Yeah. My greatest hits.
Yeah.
All those embarrassing times the jokes didn't land.
I think we can make it work. I think we can make this work if we want to clone ourselves. I think we'd work it out. It's cool. We'll sort it.
Cool. Yeah, we'll fix it.
I replaced every plank of my wife. She's far more seaworthy. The splinters are ruining our marriage. Oh my god.
Oh, Aaron's right. Simon aggressively comparing his YouTube views to clone Simon's channel. But they wouldn't know.
No!
Simon could be clone Simon. You don't know.
Yeah.
It's also like that Doctor Who episode
No.
with
Which
the...
one?
Oh, shit. It's a Peter Capaldi one.
I'm out.
I think it... No, maybe it's not a Peter Capaldi one. Maybe it's the 60th anniversary. It might be the big anniversary
There's some
one.
clones. Spoiler alert, but were there some clones?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, spoilers for the like decade-old Doctor Who episode. Maybe it's the Matt Smith one. Oh, I don't know. But there were two creatures that were the same, but they both believed that they were the real. No, shit. Who does it? And I think it is Capaldi. And then he basically does something to their minds. Oh shit. Oh, I'm doing a really bad job of this. There are two people who both believe. One of them is an alien trying to be this person. One of them is the person.
No.
And then Thingy
it was
makes the
Osgood.
person Osgood. Yes, Osgood.
It was Osgood.
And
This
then
is my mind.
here we go. And then it was Matt Smith. Okay, it's the 50th anniversary.
worry.
We got it. And then Matt Smith makes the alien one believe that they're Osgood too. So they both believe they're Osgood.
Oh no.
And then they're like, well, hang on, no, but I'm Osgood. And they have all the same memories.
Oh,
I think like one of them has the asthma pump or something, and that's how they work out they're the real.
Really
I can't remember.
upsetting.
It's really upsetting. And anyway, so same thing.
So that.
I'm as clever as the writers of Doctor Who. Summarize.
That's more
To be fair, the black hole was also slightly based on the Doctor Who episode where there's the long ship pointing at a black hole, and there's a difference in time on the ship. So Doctor Who is a strong reference point for me.
Yeah, Doctor Who. Woo.
Time Lords. I'm excited
Oh,
about
yeah.
the new series. I'm excited.
Oh yeah, is that soon?
There's the specials with Tennant and Catherine Tate
yes,
coming
of
back
course,
at the end of the
yes,
year.
yes, I forgot.
I am excited for those, but I'm mainly excited for the series after because I love.
Oh.
Okay,
I feel like we
Boom.
we
Done.
could literally go
I
on
think
for
I've covered that.
ages talking about cloning, but that's
Or our favourite sci-fi shows, possibly.
I've realised we didn't say Ali's not here today. In case anyone.
the
weren't
clone of
taking
him isn't ready.
Yeah, we tried to clone him. It didn't work. So we've just got this little baby sheep on screen.
Podcast listeners, just before we went live, Simon said, "What picture should I put in Ali's slot?" And Bates and I pressured him into photoshopping Ali's face onto not actually Dolly the sheep and Dolly's parent, but a sheep and a lamb.
I thought that was a picture of
I
Dolly.
think it is Dolly and Lamb. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but
No.
is
Sorry.
it Dolly and her child? Or is
That's
it
not that lamb is not Dolly the sheep, because Dolly the sheep's adoptive mother was a different breed, so that they could be sure when that baby came out, when that lamb came out,
Ah.
that it wasn't actually hers, and it was one they put in there.
Oh,
Rather
that's
than
an
had
interesting
black legs or in a black face, maybe.
interesting.
Yeah.
Also, because Dolly had a baby, I believe, had a baby sheep.
She was cloned.
And that was a big thing.
That was
3 or 4
No,
times.
not her being cloned.
She just had.
She gave birth, and they weren't sure whether they would be able to do it.
That's cute.
But she also was cloned.
Was she?
Yeah, she was cloned several
Again?
times. Yeah,
Oh,
and they
no.
live for
They
longer.
cloned Dolly.
Oh no! The
You've Googled that.
levels.
Hang on, I had it open earlier, and hang on, there's a Dolly.
This is what Simon does. Simon Googles things while we're talking about them, so he can say clever things about them afterwards that we don't know.
Just because we don't know.
Yeah,
the
in July
Yeah.
2016, 4 identical clones of Dolly were
wow.
alive and healthy at 9 years old. Daisy,
Wow.
Debbie, Diana, and Denise.
Maybe that's what I read about when I said there was more than one Dolly. Maybe it was those.
But
Oh,
interestingly,
well.
they seem to be a clone of her rather than from the same.
And it's the clone of Dolly,
Yeah,
not of the
clone
parent
of her.
of the.
who lived longer, suggesting.
So, what was the name of the sheep that Dolly was cloned from?
Oh,
Like
forgotten,
hang on.
forgotten
unappreciated,
Dolly parent.
unloved.
Yeah.
Do you know why she's called
Fine.
Dolly?
No.
Because no, I do know this. Because
Dolly Parton.
I have a quote in front of me here.
I'm going to
it's
guess.
something about mammary glands.
About mammary gland. Is it actually Dolly Parton because of mammary glands?
And I quote, Dolly is
She's from
derived from
mammary
a
gland.
mammary gland cell, and we couldn't think of a more impressive pair of glands than Dolly Parton's. That's why she's called Dolly.
Fucking scientists, man. Oh.
Oh, she did have a child. Yeah, she had a lamb. Her first lamb was called Bonnie,
Yeah.
and then she had twins Sally and Rosie, and then
Dolly
Lucy,
and
Darcy,
Bonnie.
and Cotton.
And now she's stuffed and in a museum.
I've seen her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw her in Edinburgh.
You. Aw.
She did Edinburgh. Damn, I could have
Yeah,
missed.
she's at the Museum of Scotland.
Oh,
Oh, I went past that many times on the bus. I've just been back from Edinburgh. I don't think we said that earlier, but yeah, there we go.
My little Dolly anecdote. I did spam chat with a link to a film I helped make many years ago, where we interviewed the technicians who were doing all the cloning. So, not the sort of high up science people. And one of the technicians said that because they had to grab the. God, it must have been like the embryo, I guess, from one place and grab it to another place, and it needed to stay warm. It needed to be basically body temperature, so she would just tuck it in her bra, just like in the top of her bra in a little tube, and then just jog to the next building,
place, you know,
in Scotland, and just make sure it was kept just right.
Wow,
super cute.
Dolly.
Well, that was, I've got to say, a really interesting science episode. Very different kinds of science today.
Oh no! What did I want to say?
Oh no, she's thought of more.
No,
Emily,
no, it's not a science bit. It's
Okay.
not a science bit.
Okay,
It's a thing.
that's
Simon
alright.
said something earlier, and you were talking about speed of light and things, and it made the song "Quiet" from Matilda come into my head,
Yeah,
Yes.
which has the line about
I have.
and have you ever wondered? Well, I could do the whole thing.
If you're
But
traveling.
traveling at the speed of
Almost the
light,
speed of
and you're,
light, and you're
holding a light, that
and
light
that
would
light
still travel away from you
at the
at the
speed of
full
light.
speed of light, which seems right
in a
way.
way.
We're going to be out of
Probably
sync.
not out of sync for everyone else. Sorry, guys. We just
but-
really like musical theatre.
But that line, but then you said, I was like, oh, that's like that line. And then I realized the consciousness thing that I was talking about with the cloning is like have you ever wondered, well, I have, about how when I say red, for example, there's no way of knowing that red means the same thing in my head as red means in your head when someone says red. And then I was like, oh, it's the same song and it fits
That's
both of our
all
topics. Anyway,
That- that's-
just didn't mention.
go
the
listen to
red,
Quiet from Matilda. It's beautiful.
The red paradox thing, I remember. Oxford used to have, I presume it still does have, a satirical newspaper called the Oxymoron, and there was an article in there that stuck with me ever since about how physicists were fucking insufferable, and how they because there's this thing about how like there's nothing more obnoxious than a physicist discovering a field for the first time and being like, oh, it's basically this with this assumptions, yes. And there was a thing about the red problem being like, oh, and you know, physicist Tim from Merton College solved the red paradox by pointing to a hat that was red and say, well, this is red. And it's like, yeah, that is how physicists think of the world.
That's not the point of that problem, because everyone would point at the same thing and say it's red because that's what they think red is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that if you saw what I see as red as green, you wouldn't know because it doesn't matter. Idiots, stupid physicists.
Stupid physicists ruining our rabbit stew.
Bates, apparently you've missed Dolly the Sheep musical at the Edinburgh Fringe last year. An excellent crossover.
I would have loved
Our
to have seen
interests
that.
Also, Beck Lyman chat. Thank you.
There
for
were 3 Alan Turing
Look at that.
shows this year. Is it an anniversary or something?
Gosh,
They were imitating
interesting.
each other.
Get out.
This isn't a game, I'm sorry.
It's not a game. Yeah, there were 3, and I was like, oh, I like Alan. I didn't go to any of them. But
Googling.
There were
Alan
3.
Turing Anniversary.
But we should probably wrap up, however.
I don't know.
having a nice time talking about Alan Turing.
Yes, thank you all so much for joining us today. That was some very cool science. If you liked the science, tell people about our science. But also, we hope you like our TTRPG role-playing adventures as well, which will be continuing next week.
We've got how many episodes left?
9 next week, I think?
4 left.
12.
4
Yeah,
episodes left.
2/3 of the way through. Yeah.
12. That's how
I've got to
this
wrap it up
works.
in 4 episods.
You can do it, I believe.
I'll kill you
Episode
all,
9.
then it'll all be fine. It'll all be done if you all die, won't it?
Yeah, episode 9. We are going to be now pre-recorded for the next 4 episodes of the campaign. So do, if you can, keep an eye on our Twitter or X for any sort of live updates, because well, I mean, we'll be in chat for the shows, but we won't be able to. Our updates will not be as live as they would be live.
Yes.
And we've got some giveaways coming up, and we're going to be like talking about the giveaways, but we won't actually.
Should we talk about the giveaway now?
Right, we're doing we haven't even planned it yet. We're doing a giveaway, right? We're doing 2 giveaways for episode 11 and 12. So the final 2 episodes of our campaign.
Yes.
We have got codes for digital beginner boxes for Paizo's Starfinder,
Yeah.
the new system we've just been playing.
Let me get out what you get in the beginner box.
We
while
got-
you do this.
I think we've got 6 of them to give away.
Yeah, we
I've
do,
not
yeah.
misread. You could win those, but you're going to have to put in your diaries when episodes 11 and 12 are live on Twitch, because that is when we're going to be revealing how you enter, and you enter in chat. So, come to all the episodes, obviously, but episode 11, I believe, will be on the 4th of September, with episode 12 on the 11th of September. So definitely be there for then. And then after that, we'll have some kind of wrap-up episode on the 18th of September where we'll announce who's actually won. Yeah.
Great. So in the beginner's box that you get, just so you know what you're fighting for,
Tell us.
you get a 96-page hero's handbook detailing character creation and general rules for playing the game, plus a short solo adventure, a 96-page games master's guide containing an adventure, aliens, and advice on how to create your own science fantasy tales, a complete set of dice.
Ooh.
You get dice. I might
digital.
enter the giveaway. Maybe you don't get dice.
Can't get
Well, we've got the
dice.
digital ones. I'm reading this from a different.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's going to be
They're
impressive.
going to send you the
if
STLs
they-
for dice. You can 3D print your own dice.
I'm not going to
We'll
read
want
the
the
rest of the
dice.
stuff
No,
that I'm
don't,
going to
'cause that might
say
be wrong.
because they might all be wrong. So you get some stuff so you can play Starfinder, and I think it sounds actually like it's quite good because it sounds like it's quite like a simplified rule set for starting out, which is maybe what
that
we could
is
have done with.
probably
But
useful.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
we
We
should have
went
had that.
straight
Oops.
in. You know, is it definitely digital? Shit.
Yeah, because it's on it's codes, and then basically, I think you email. I'll get in touch with the winners, and then I send you create a Paizo.com login, and I send your username to our fun Paizo community manager pal, and then he hooks you up with
Hooks you up.
the box. So then when you log in, it's all there for you, but not the dice, because they could be there, but they'll be on the website. So
You can imagine the dice.
not so useful.
I rolled a 7.
Not 20 again. Every time. That would say a lot about you as a person, is what you decided you rolled every time.
Yeah. Spinning that internal spinner.
Yeah. I'm going to say a thing. I really like rolling a nat one.
It's great, isn't it?
It happens very frequently, it feels like.
I enjoy it because you're like, well, shit. And, really bad stuff can happen. And I like that.
If I want really bad stuff to happen, I'll just play the game called My Life. Like, I play D&D to try and roll nat 20s.
Simon, what are you saying about your life?
Simon, you've got a
Think
lovely
about
life.
your life, and then think about what you're saying about that life.
Yeah.
Simon.
You've got a lovely life.
Got a lovely life. I just hate Blender at the moment.
We all hate Blender. I don't even attempt Blender. I hate it. I hate it. I hate
I've
it.
rolled several nat ones in a row today.
That's fair. That's fair.
It's been a long old day.
You don't have to do any more Blender tonight, do you?
I need to make
Blender.
one more.
No.
I need to press render on one more sequence.
Okay, you can
Yeah,
press
let's
render.
press
I'll let you.
render.
I'll let you
Let's
press
press
render.
render.
That's fine. Okay.
I blend
Who
the
loves?
render.
No, you don't love Blender. Everyone has Blender. Right, we should stop talking now and actually end the episode properly. You can find us on our socials at RPGeeks D&D. We are on Twitter /X. We are on Threads. Technically, we're on Instagram. Technically, we're on TikTok. We're on YouTube. Technically. Look, we're in these places.
We're on YouTube.
Follow us. We're on YouTube. You can sometimes find our podcasts, not the Starfinder ones yet, but you will eventually. And on podcast apps when I sort my life out. And we are here on Twitch. If you're watching us live, if you're not watching us live, we're on Twitch at RPGeeks D&D. I've done a bad job there. Should we do the Patreon? We should be doing Patreon shout outs. Someone roll me a dice.
For the science episode.
We don't do them for the.
We don't do them for the
I
science
specified.
Sorry. Okay, we
can
don't do.
them if you want. But
Let's
we're not in the zone.
No, let's
of
not. I'm not
Absalom,
ready.
It's not the same. We're not.
No, I'm not ready.
You know,
Okay,
can't
fine.
be-
Well, thank you, everyone.
it's different
We have a Patreon.
vibes.
We have a
Patreon.com/RPGeeks
and you can like see us. We do a really cool show, which I really, really enjoy, called Behind the Screens, which we do on every campaign episode, where we talk a little bit about what we enjoyed from the episode, and I talk a bit about the world building that went to it. People talk about what their characters were thinking, feeling. It's really nice. I enjoy that one a lot.
We
It's
try
basically
to, we
the
try to
conversation.
actually be detectives as well, like trying to work out like what the fuck
yeah,
is
it's
going
cute.
on.
And I laugh maniacally the whole time. I enjoy it because it's basically the conversations that we would have with each other after we finish streaming normally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's nice.
now you get to watch them. Yeah.
It's good.
Now we've monetized them, so everything is content. Well done, friends.
No, it's bad. We're bad. Everything's bad.
You can also see like Shamini's notes. I'm going to stop this very long exit.
Yeah. Boom.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye. Oh, where's the button? There it is.